Jim, thank you very much for taking the time to sit down and talk to me.
A pleasure, Cameron.
So, I know you from the State Bar Blues Band.
Yes.
You host a jam night every Tuesday night, or is every
second Tuesday,
yes,
now, as you found out.
Yes, and you also host a blues night at the Charlie's Loft in Mulgay.
Yep.
How long have you been doing that for, in particular?
Oh, that one is maybe about 5 years.
Okay.
Is it as much as that? Is it more than that? 5 years.
Lost track now.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's how I know you, but obviously I've taken a couple of guitar lessons with yourself. You've had a long career in music, so I thought
Yes.
maybe we just start right at the beginning when you first picked up a guitar, or round about the time when you first picked up a guitar.
That's quite interesting. I first picked up a guitar, a real guitar, when it would be my second Christmas. So I was under 2, year and a half old, and the guitarist in my father's band gave me a guitar, a kind of jazz cello guitar. I don't remember much, but I can remember them, like me trying to stand up with them putting this guitar around my neck and me trying to stand up and play it. I didn't understand what it was or anything, but I remember everyone having a right good laugh at me trying to stand up with this guitar. Yeah, so that was my first experience with a guitar. And that guitar, when we moved back up to Glasgow a number of years later, the guitar disappeared.
Right. So where were you?
I was living in London at this point. I was born in London.
Born in London, right.
Yeah. Although my parents are Scottish.
Okay.
But my sister and I are London.
So what took them down there in the first place?
Trying to be successful in music.
So they were musicians?
My dad was. My mum, no.
Right, okay.
But my dad was, he was a pianist. And he would play in shows and things like that. Like variety shows. He had a band, a group, and they would play variety shows and summer seasons and things like that. And the singer in the band was Cleo Lane. I don't know if you're old enough. Right, Cleo Lane's a very famous jazz player,
right.
A jazz singer, and her husband Johnny Dankworth. And some of the people watching it would know this, but Cleo Lane would take me out in my pram, which was, like, for those of a certain vintage, it's like, whoa.
Right, okay. So you were around musicians from
Yes.
the very beginning.
Oh yeah,
and very good musicians, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And then it was that thing that I liked the Shadows when I was young, but then it was the Beatles came along and everybody was just like, whoa, that was the big thing. But it was probably it would be Cream, Wheels of Fire, playing Crossroads. That was, my friend played it to me. Mm-hmm. And at first I thought, that's just a noise. That's just a big noise. And he lent me the album, and I started, kind of listening to it, and I kind of liken it to a wee bit to when you start developing a taste for curries, and it's mild, and then you start getting a bit, and then there was a point where I thought, I want to do that. Mm-hmm. I already played, my cousin had showed me some chords on the guitar. I already played the guitar, but it was just at that I thought, oh, this is what I want to do.
So how old would you have been roughly then?
At that point, would I be 15, 16?
So your dad never drummed the music into you?
He left. No, he disappeared when I was 5. I never saw him again.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, so he remained a musician because, unfortunately, we traced him about 2 years after he died, and I've got a half-sister in London who's a lot younger than myself and my sister, but she's also a professional musician. She's played the Albert Hall and things.
Without you knowing she had been working on her music all that time?
Yes, I didn't know her.
Building a career.
Yeah, but when we met up, we were both musicians, and my sister is a musician as well. Yeah, so there was something. My mother, I have to say, sorry, Mum, but she was completely tone deaf.
Right.
I mean, like really tone deaf. No,
Okay.
no. So it was the music was definitely all from my father.
Right. Okay.
But say I never saw him from. He left when just before my 6th birthday. I was still 5, and never heard from him again. But he did remain a musician.
Do you have any idea whereabouts he was when he?
He went back. He was in London.
Okay. And I assume to make it as a musician,
Well,
that was his
in
main
the first
goal.
instance, that's what he was there. When I was young,
you went
he
with
was
him.
there
Yeah.
to try and make it.
And he
as a
left
musician.
again probably to do the same thing, do you think? Or
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
But he just disappeared.
yeah. So you continued dabbling in music, dabbling with the guitar.
Dabbling until I was, I heard Crossroads, and I thought, oh, I want to do that. So I started kind of digging in a wee bit more, and then I did judo when I was young for years. And my friend at the judo, John McHugh, he was coming up. We were coming up early, and we were heading to judo, and I'd figured out, funnily enough, Statesboro Blues, which we still always finish with, right? And I'd figured out the lead part to it. And, but I didn't know it was actually slide guitar, but I didn't know what slide guitar was.
Right.
So I just figured that out as lead guitar. My friend came up to get me from judo. He didn't play guitar. I said, so he came in and was, John. And I showed him the chords to play so that I could play the lead over. This is the first time that this had happened to me. And I showed him how to play chords, and he did this. I played it, and within about 2 weeks we had a band with him on rhythm guitar and me on lead.
And you never looked back.
Never looked back. Yeah.
So did you get a drummer in? Did you get a bass
The
player
drummer,
in?
a friend of mine was played in a scout band. He played drums in the scout band, and a guy that we knew was a Peter McLaughlin. Spud was the drummer, Michael Murphy, and who's still playing, still doing the circuit. Peter played bass, and Peter had been in bands. So not much at this stage, but Peter's about a year older than us, and so he kind of knew a bit of what was going on. So, but we all lived very close to each other. So so Spud put together in the scout hall where we would rehearse in the scout hall because they were both still in the scouts, and we would rehearse in that, and Spud would put together a drum kit made out of the stuff from the marching band, for the pipe band, and he would just kick the bass drum. And I think did we gig like that? I'm not sure if we did.
Oh, it's a shame there's not footage of that somewhere. That would be fantastic.
if only we had mobile phones.
Yeah. So it's very much a DIY start for.
Oh yeah. I might. It might be worth telling you. Our first gig was right. It was Peter, the bass player, had got as a gig, and he said, we're playing at the YMCA in Bothwell Street in Glasgow. We thought, oh great. We had no transport. None of us could drive. We got a load of our friends, things like that, and some of the stuff we'd accumulated all this equipment, and like back then, equipment was all big. It was huge, just big speaker cabinets and things. And our friends, and obviously us, some of the stuff we could get on the bus. So we took the bus into town for this gig, the gear, and then the rest of it we carried from Rutherglen to Bothwell Street. All of us carried it through the Gorbals, round past Bridgeon, was it Gorbals, through that way. I can't remember, whatever it was, but just us and our pals all carrying these big 4x12 speaker cabinets all the way into Glasgow. When we got there, Peter, I can't remember, was Peter working? The rest of us were at school, and I think Peter was working. But whatever it was, he was a wee bit late. He did not involve himself in all this. But when he turned up, we were, because the YMCA in Bothwell Street, it was closed, it was dark, there was something. And he went, No, it's actually next door. So we're all in our best kind of cream Led Zeppelin looking things. It's actually next door. And it was a pensioners club. And we've got this gear on this big, and we had to go in and fortunately I knew lots of songs, you know, 'cause I played guitar at family parties and things like that. And I would back all the people in the family. So my grandparents would be singing songs like "She's Only a Bird in a Gilded Cage" from the turn of the last century, you know, like from the early 20th century. And my uncles and aunts would be singing Perry Como and Frank Sinatra or things like that. My cousins would all want to sing the Beatles and the Searchers and things. So I could play all that and I could sing all that. I was already versatile at doing that. So I just did a lot of stuff that the pensioners of that era would like. And we went down really well. I mean, there was more stories of that gig, but you know, like the PA going live, where if you touch the PA, and we still did the gig. If you touch the amp and the mic, you got shot.
You just cracked on with it.
We just cracked on with, and at the end of the night, one of the parents, somebody's parent, paid for a taxi to get some of the gear. So we managed to get a load of the gear into the taxi, but we still had to carry the rest. After the gig at night, you know, whatever it was, late on a Saturday night, there was us all along Argyle Street, through Bridgeton, through and Kilmarnock, carried.
I bet you were fine with it back then, though, when you first started, because it was just for the love of doing it.
It was just brilliant with a gig.
Yeah.
After that, we found someone that had a van that would take us to gigs, but yeah.
So was it that early on that you thought, this is for me, I'm going to stick with this as long as I can?
I didn't, because I didn't. I was actually quite. I mean, I loved it at this stage. I was obsessed by judo, right? That's what I did. That was my big obsession, was that. And plus, because fundamentally, my father, being a professional musician, had kind of, it didn't ruin our lives because my mum was great, but in a certain way it ruined. It ruined us. His obsession with it had ruined our lives, and so I was reluctant to give my life to, even though I did love it. But I was very, very hesitant. I mean, I've got to say, there was a certain point came where I was earning twice as much money from gigging. I was gigging every night of the week. Later on, this was. And I was earning twice as much money as I was from working, right? But I wouldn't give up my day job. I wouldn't go professional, because that was that was where I thought, that this is me then.
What was the day job at that time?
I was a civil servant.
You knew you had that security there.
Yeah, and it was just, but it was more really, I suppose, for my mum. I didn't, you know, she'd already had my dad go down that path, and it caused a lot of upset. And I didn't want to, but eventually, actually, I was so much, I was gigging so much and trying to hold down a job, I ended up with an ulcer in my teens. I was so stressed with it all, and I was still doing judo, I have to say, to the bargain. I look back and I can't understand how much, but I was in a band, a kind of a show band type thing at this point, and we were gigging so often, they were picking me up from my work in the van to play gigs at lunchtime, and then bringing me back. In the summer, there was open air gigs and things like that in the town centre, and we would do that. Then they would drop off. Then they would pick me up again after work, and we would go off to Ullapool or something like that, and do a show there, or like that kind of thing. And there just came a point where I had to accept that that's what I was going to do, and that was it. I turned professional. And shortly after that, moved to London.
Right, and I take it the the motivation of the aspirations there was to become a recording artist?
Oh,
to be a
yes,
session player?
To become world famous, fundamentally.
Right.
Yeah.
And had you written much by that point, or were you kind of just
No,
happy to be a sideman for?
No, written songs. The kind of core of the band and things like that. We would do original material. We would do covers. We would do, we played at Burns House and things like that, doing some original stuff, and then we would do weddings, playing the. I've got to say, I was very naive in the sense that although we did all the we would do original material, we would play the house and things like that, but fundamentally, and I do look back on this as, in some ways it was really good, but in another way, I didn't, until I went to London, I hadn't sold my soul to rock and roll. I was earning money. I was playing for money,
Right.
rather than for the music. I was very naive. Like apart from maybe Peter for a wee while, but for the most part, there was nobody in our circle, in my musical circle, that kind of knew more than I did, and I didn't know very much. So it was one of those things. It wasn't there weren't a bunch of older guys playing that we could ask the question, or like, how would we do this? How would we do that?
Yeah.
So I was like going to London. I was fairly naive about it. It just, I honestly, we were talking about this just the other day. I thought I'd said to my mum, like, was going, I'll be back in about a month. I thought, I would go down there for a month. People will recognise me for my talent, and I'll be back up the road, with all my swag.
Yeah.
And my gold discs. I said, I'll be back in about a month.
Yeah.
And like 10 years later.
Right. So what, did you feel that you had were you sort of specialist in any certain genres, or did you play a bit everything at that point?
I've got to say that, and again, I would say a bit with regret, that I was a real bandwagon jumper. Mm-hmm. Whatever the latest trend was, I was, oh, right, I must be able to do that. So, whoever I heard, when, like, I was a rock player, then I heard Albert Lee playing country, and I went, oh, must be able to do that.
Okay.
But
does that not kind of how it works with some session players? They need to turn their hand to what is big at the time.
Yeah. But I wasn't until I didn't really do sessions until a substantial amount. Like, I would do bits and pieces, mm-hmm. but I didn't really do a lot of session work till I moved back up to Glasgow.
Okay. So how long were you in London then in total?
Was it about 8 years, 9 years?
Okay. And did you see some success there? Did it?
Yeah. Well, a few kind of things. Again, people that maybe wouldn't mean much to you, and the things. But I did. I played with a guy called John Otway, who was a big, I don't know, cult figure. I don't know what you'd call him, but kind of punky guy. Did a lot of stuff like the Reading Festival and things like that with him. And I played a band called The Look, who had a hit before I joined, but they had a hit with a song called I Am the Beat, and I played with them. But I also, I don't know, this, at that point, I also was very close to joining the Pretenders and Thin Lizzy. I had two really, sliding door moments where, like with the Pretenders, it was very early on with them. They were looking for a guitar player. It was advertised in the Melody Maker. Answered the ad and spoke to the bass player, Pete Farndon. And he says, oh, like, tell me a bit about what you'll be doing. That's how they had, that, that was how successful they were at this stage. You could still speak to the bass player, like right. When they were looking for...
You didn't have to call the agents. Yeah.
Yes. So I said to him that I'd just been playing with John Otway. Oh, he says, saw you, he says, we saw you at the Reading Festival. And he said, oh, that's great. He said, that's, yeah, he says, I know who you are. He says, that's great. He said, that's kind of very suitable to what we're looking for. And he said, anything else I can say to you? He said, I said, well, right before that, I was in the stage production of Tommy, Who's Tommy? And he went, we all saw that as well. He said, this is great. He said, I'll tell you what it is that's happened. He said, we were, our mate was supposed to be joining the band, but he's decided against it. He says, so we've kind of been left, you know, looking for somebody. He says, but that's great. He says, I know who you are, but everybody will know who you are. He says, that's really great. He said, we're actually having a week off this week. He says, I'll phone you next weekend. He says, and we'll arrange a get together. He said, but, you know, he says, it sounds really good. So, following weekend, he phoned me. Right. He says, Jim, he says, I'm really sorry. He said, but our mate's changed his mind. And that was James Honeyman Scott, who was it? Now, I had a similar story with Thin Lizzy as well, that I don't think I would have lasted with that, but it was to replace Gary Moore in Thin Lizzy. Wow. And Midge Ure recommended me, right, because he's from about here. And Midge Ure had recommended me, told me all sorts of things, like told me where they were buying their clothes, where they go in and get an outfit. He says, so he said, they're really fed up with it. He said, the first person that comes in that can play it in time and in tune, he says, they're going to go, yes. And he was, I've got to say, Midge Ure was great with me. I didn't know him prior to this, but he was a friend of the drummer in the band I was with just now, and he had played him some stuff of me. So Midge had kind of talked me through stuff and things like that. And I'd learned all the stuff. I loved Thin Lizzy at this point. Learned all the stuff, learned all the things. I even learned Black Rose. I'd learned that because another friend of mine was a folk guitar player. So he actually could play all that, but he didn't play it like Gary Moore played, but he knew it. So he helped me get all that. So I'd learned all that. And then my audition was on the Thursday. Midge phoned me to say, sorry, Jim, Phil's got an abscess, so he can't do today. Can you do Monday lunchtime, whatever it was, 1 o'clock? And I said, yeah, that's okay. I mean, whether it was an abscess that Phil had or whatever, with the way he was at those times. But anyway, he couldn't do it. So Monday, I'm ready to go down again. I'm just about to leave. The phone goes and it's Midge. There he goes. He says, Jim, I'm really sorry. He says, they've just got someone. They just got Dave Flett from the Manfred Mann Band. He's been in and they've given him the job. So what would it be? They went off on a tour of Japan, but not long after that, I was playing in this weekend of Irish country band. You know, this is everybody. This is where you made your money in London, was playing in the Irish country bands. Right? It was easy money. You didn't have to rehearse or do anything like that. And so I was playing with this in a pub in Hammersmith. You know, just jum, 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 jum. And it was £10 a night. You know, £10. And I played there every Friday night for a while. And there I am, and Thin Lizzy are playing at the Hammersmith Odeon. And there I am, going, you know, sitting in the tube with my guitar and my amp in a trolley. And going to this gig, and the place full of, like Thin Lizzy fans all going, oh, we're going to see the guitars. I think it was Snowy White by this point. Dave Flett didn't last, and it's Snowy White. And there's me sitting, and then on the way back, they're all on the tube going back, and that was a brilliant show. The guitar player, and he was this and that. And there's me sitting like this. Yeah, for my £10 Irish country gig.
I mean, how do you feel about that stuff now? Because I guess that you done everything right, essentially. It's not like you squandered the opportunity. It just so happened that you kind of got unlucky, I guess, in the end.
No, I think there's things that I look back, And I know what I didn't do was I didn't circulate enough.
Right.
You know, so much of it. Yeah, I didn't network, and I didn't realise. I always had this thing that people would see how good I am, and that's not what it is. Do you know? You've got to put yourself about, and I didn't do that. At all. And again, without getting into it, I had a few opportunities with things, with people of some standing that were interested in me. That was good. And I didn't do it. You know, I didn't follow up on it. I just thought, people will see the music. What I didn't know until much later was that the old adage of the music business, that's the important word.
Yeah.
You know, music, business. And I just thought the music would...
it would come to you, basically. The opportunities would come just through just being out there on stage, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, what I should have been doing and things like that, and for anyone listening, what I should have been doing and things like that is when Midge phoned, I should be saying, do you want to go for a drink, Midge?
Right.
You know, and then meet up, and then maybe, while he's with that, Phil comes in.
Right.
You know, Phil Lynott comes in and...
Maintain that connection there. That might have led to something later.
That kind of thing. And I didn't, I waited for it all to happen. And, you know, that was... so I was awfully naive and things. And I don't know whether, you know, the truth is, I look back and I still don't network. And I still don't really... And I don't know, even knowing what I know, it's not my nature. I don't know, maybe even if I went back knowing what I know, I just couldn't.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. If that's not... I guess it's a particular skill in itself, isn't it, to reach out to people and to, you know, if you're... I sometimes feel with musicians, they're naturally kind of closed off people. That's why they like to be sat in the room playing music and I mean, I think it's probably even worse essentially now in that you've now got social media added onto that. You need to be a social media expert to make it. I mean, obviously, I'm not a musician. I'm not a professional musician.
You are a musician.
I'm a musician.
You certainly are.
I'm not a professional musician. But I can only imagine what it's like to now have that on top of, you know, just trying to get out there, trying to stand out in this world now, when Instagram, all you need to do is flick through it for 30 seconds and you'll see world-class guitar players.
Yes.
And you've talked about this before when we've had lessons, that what kind of impact do you have when someone walks into a bar now and sees you play versus 30, 40, you know, whenever you were... it must just be incredibly hard. I think it's the same, obviously, in all, you know, throughout the creative industries or throughout music. Is that there's that extra skill that you need to have with social media that some people just, you know, it's exhausting keeping up with it, I guess.
Absolutely. I think, I mean, I started another YouTube channel, right? Just doing guitar licks, just, you know, like no big explanations, but just, well, a bit of an explanation, but no big deal, no theory, no thing. And I thought, do this. And you know, it's like one of these things, I look at it and I've got a minimum amount of people, you know, and things like this. And I'm looking at other channels doing a similar thing and I'm thinking, how are they doing that? You know, and I think the truth is I'm not putting enough effort into it.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess, you know, with YouTube, being a videographer and spending a lot of time on YouTube channels, which is what I've done for most of my video career, essentially, so much of it is just getting in early enough as well.
Yes,
because it's been a platform for so long now. All the staple channels are there. And
it's all been done.
Yeah, and it's so difficult. And this is was going to be one of my questions. We'll come back to sort of your time in London, but like, you know, from the way it has changed, how do you stand out these days?
When I would be 5th, 6th year at school, there would be maybe 3, myself and 2 other electric guitar players in the school, in a big secondary school, you know, I don't know, a couple of thousand kids. There would be myself and 2 other electric guitar players, 3 maybe, a few acoustic guitar players, but then I mean, when I was teaching classes and things, and I would teach classes for, you know, standard grades and hires and things like that. And there would be, you know, 30 kids
Yeah.
all doing, you know, and from one school, doing standard grade guitar or higher guitar, things, and, you know, so that would be like 60 at one school. And it just has become a thing now that you know, if I'm teaching you something, now you can pick up, if I show you something, you pick it up in a couple of minutes. Something that back then took me maybe 3 months. There weren't, when I was, I mean, there was no guitar teachers teaching rock or blues. It was only jazz and classical.
Right.
And that's not what I wanted to do. So you just, I mean, I think that probably with hindsight, if I could go back, I would just go to jazz lessons.
Right.
I would just take general guitar lessons and transfer it to. But even I did do about 2 lessons in a community thing, and it was a jazz player and a classical player that did it.
Right.
And what they actually did, and because they knew, I would already been playing. I was gigging and things like this, but it was people that you'd say, "Oh, come along to this, Jim," you know, to someone along. So they were showing you, and they'd like, well, I can't do it just now because of my hand, but you'd put your guitar in the centre of the neck, and you know, and play like that. So I only was there for about 2 weeks. I did learn a couple of good things, but there was me, and I'm going, well, that's how you're supposed to play it. There was no YouTube to check whether they were right or wrong, and I'm trying to bend strings with my neck, with my thumb, and I'm thinking, you know, I'm taking their word as gospel because they know more than me. And I'm thinking, why can I not bend strings? You know, and I'm listening to that kind of thing, and I'm looking at Eric Clapton thinking, Eric, you've got it wrong. You've got it wrong, Eric. You know, think how much better you would be if you, you know, so there was, so I might have been sent down, I probably would have been sent down a different path, and maybe a path that I wouldn't have enjoyed as much.
Yeah, I think as well, if you're used to learning by ear, it's funny, again, touching on the social media thing, especially as somebody who's trying to learn the instrument, there is almost too much information out there, and it's just enough to, you know, if you find a technique that works, just stick with it and commit to that, as opposed to going and finding 3 or 4 different, you know. I guess in some ways you can learn more that way, but I think it just overcomplicates it for most people.
Agree.
You can essentially get out your own way at that point. And just focus on creating the sound that you want to hear.
I think that's the important thing.
Yeah.
Is that you know, I mean, by all means, if you want to learn to be a whole variety of different kinds of guitar players, and which I did when I was young, but well, when I was kind of in the middle, that's what I probably wanted to do. But I think it's about an identity. No, not for everyone. If you're a session player, it is about being versatile and being able to do that. But it's also now, just for me, it's about playing what I wanted to hear. The thing that moved me in the first place as a guitar player. I want to develop that, but that's Crossroads with Cream, Clapton. I want to kind of sound like that, but with what I've got thrown in, you know.
So 23, you moved to London, you came back 8 years, you reckon you were there?
Yes. Yeah.
So 31 back in Glasgow?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And what, after, you know, those opportunities never sort of came to anything, what was the plan, just to come back and start? That was when you went into teaching?
There was, I had a year, my sister was in a serious accident, and I come up, this would be about 1980, and I come up to help her in various things, and I was up for about a year, and although I still officially lived in London, Eleanor, my wife, was in London, but I was helping her and up and down. But while I was up here, I formed a band, a kind of punk band called I Spy, and I Spy were again on the cusp of it. We recorded with Chas Chandler, who'd obviously produced and managed Jimi Hendrix and Slade and stuff like that. So he wanted to sign us, but we had a big label one was interested in us at the same time. So in probably my worst move, I knocked back Chas Chandler because we thought this it was CBS who became Sony.
Yep.
They were interested in us, took us into the studio things, and then they didn't. Right? And the band kind of folded in. And that Chas Chandler, I so regret. We recorded with him, just to run through stuff. But I wish that I could say that, me, Slade, and Jimi Hendrix, I wish that, just even if I could have just said that, I wish. But just thought, we just saw something. It was a good band. And this kind of punky new wave, a bit Elvis Costello, a bit kind of that kind of thing. And
you bet on that.
Yeah.
I mean, at least you committed to it, I guess.
Yeah. But it quite quickly disintegrated. Okay. And then that was a year, that was about 1980. Then come up officially 1985. Right. Moved back up. And at that point really just started, again, that odd thing that I thought, when I get back up, all the guys I know, I'll get a band easily. And then all the guys that either they'd moved to London or they were, it all changed. And it took me a wee while to get a band. Then I got a band and just started gigging the, pubs and clubs with them. And in the meanwhile, met a guy called Ian Johnson who'd heard my music, and he started managing me and trying to get me a deal, trying to get something going. And he did really well, but again, for one reason or another, it didn't quite happen. Okay. But I came to work with Ian a few times over the years. We always had a connection up until fairly recently. I get involved later with him with a production company, just writing and things. But but he did very well for me at the time. But there was a few things, close calls, but
just never quite.
Nah.
Okay.
No.
So was it just a matter of just making a living at that point, just gigging, teaching, a bit everything for you?
Yes.
By then.
Yeah. Oh, I forgot about that. No, the first thing that happened, it was through a drummer friend of mine when I moved back up. I forgot I joined Middle of the Road, who had been a very famous band in the early 70s. They'd #1 hits and all this kind of thing, Scottish band, and I joined them. And I did that for, I don't know, how long was it? 6 months, a year, and they were still, I'm still officially a member, but we've actually got a gig, I think, in Germany in November. There'll be a few dates round about that, things like that. So that was in 1985, and I'd rejoined them again in 1995, and for a couple of years, and then again played with them a few times about 5 years after that. And so I always refer to them, right, Middle of the Road is like they are Hotel California. Right. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave because I'm still.
You're always going to be there.
Yeah. I've still got a gig with them at the end of the year.
Specifically blues. Was that always it? When?
No, I was never a blues player.
Right.
But exactly as you say, I played blues. Mm-hmm. Very often if you're doing it, there would be a blues number in your set. If you were doing rock, at various periods, you would do that. But I kind of, like that thing where when Stevie Ray came about and it started, getting known, and I started getting into blues, and I bought loads of blues, and I got really back into it. I was in my earliest periods when I was into Clapton and Rory Gallagher and Hendrix and all that, in my earliest kind of days of bands. Yeah, I blues albums and Lightning Hopkins albums and things like that. So I was really into it for a while then, but not really playing in a blues band, just bands that would play some blues. Mostly I wanted to hear where the guys that I like Rory or Eric or Jimmy, I wanted to hear where they came from,
Right.
you know. So later on then, you know, like in the 80s, I started like everybody of that kind of time when Stevie Ray kind of started, I thought, oh yeah, this is good.
Yeah.
And I started kind of getting back into it again and buying the Freddie King albums and BB King albums and getting back in. But I still didn't play in a blues band, and I'd never actually played in a blues band, just a few bands that had played blues. And then a band called the Red Greens Blues Band, who morphed into the State Bar Band.
Not only, obviously, are you a great guitar player, but I wanted to talk about some of your guitars.
Yes.
You've acquired some amazing guitars over the years. I think we're going to talk about a couple in particular.
Yeah.
So we could start with the Gold Top 52 Les Paul,
Yes.
if we want to get that off the wall.
It was in 1974, and I went into McCormick's Music in Glasgow. And at this point, you know, like obviously from all from Peter Green to Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page and all that, we're all using 59 Les Pauls. And it was unusual in Glasgow to see a 50s Les Paul. And they had this up on the wall, 1952 Les Paul. And what was that in 2021? And I was, as I said to you earlier on, I was making a lot of money because I still had a day job and I was gigging a ridiculous amount, functions and things like that. So I was doing okay financially. And I mean, I look back and I'm not quite sure why I didn't just buy it. But anyway, I went in, I had to get, so I had to go home and get my mum to come in and sign for me because she was still at home. I was still at home. She had to sign it for me. But anyway, I got it. It was, I think it was £250. I've still got the original card for it. And so I got it then, and it was my main guitar then until the late 80s. I mean, I got other guitars as well for various things, but this was the one. But it looked completely different then. I should point that out. I've got a photo of it over there. It was sunburst, well, a kind of tobacco burst. The pickup covers were black.
So the colour in particular is the most interesting thing about it.
Yeah.
Because from what I know, all the Les Pauls that they produced at the time, which was the first year the Les Paul was produced,
Yes.
all had gold tops.
Yes, that's right.
To help them, I guess, stand out. That's what they wanted, was that kind of premium look.
Yeah.
So the fact that it was a different colour, you had a theory about this, is that right?
I do. I think, my guess is, because underneath the scratch plate, there was like a chisel, just like it had been gouged with a chisel. And I knew an American guy that played in a band with my friend when we were in London. He had a 53 and it had the same thing. And his was like a natural finish, right? And what I reckon has happened is, I think for some reason, maybe the finish or something, it's been a factory second.
Right.
I think that somebody in the factory, that's what the gouge is. I did read about that a number of years ago, that this was, if there was a second, so it couldn't be sold. I think what's happened is maybe the finish has been flawed or something, because there was a bit of gold paint under the pickup cover, just a speck. So but it did look as though at some point it had been gold.
Right.
But I think that what's happened is somebody in the factory has gone, all right, I'm just gonna refinish this in a burst, because the burst that it was an old-fashioned burst. It wasn't like the later 50 burst. It looked like early 50s jazz guitars at that colour. And I suspect that the person who's done it for themselves, it's been gouged so that it couldn't be resold as a like as a Gibson. And I think that they've finished it. I think that it's been someone in the factory that's done that. Because when I got it in 1974, I mean, it was it was worn away here, worn away there. There was a lot of wear on it. It had to be at least, I would have said 1974, I would have said it had to be, the finish on it had to be at least 20 years old. Okay. So that took you back to 1954. Nobody in 1954 was refinishing their gold Les Paul. So I think that it's, it seems a logical explanation.
And the guitar went from yourself to
Bruce Watson.
Yeah.
Well, what I would say though is that when I got it, it had the trapeze, the trapeze.
This was the issue, wasn't it, with a lot of these guitars, was that they were hard to play
Because
of the...
That's right, the bridge was right. Now, when I got it, it has, forget this bit here, right, but it was the Tune-o-matic, right? It was like that rather than the wrap over or the trapeze. Then I sold it. I was giving lessons to Bruce Watson of Big Country, and he loved the Les Paul. At this stage, it was the 80s. I wasn't using it much. It was lying under my bed mostly, or sitting out. But it was mostly at this point. It was all Strats that I was using, and so he made me an offer I couldn't refuse, although I should have. But it was, at the time, he gave me £700 for it. The going rate at this point would be about £500. Okay. And he said, Jim, I'll give you £7 for it. He was doing well. He's, Big Country and all that kind of thing. And he was a nice bloke. So he said, I'll give you £700 for it. I'd really like it. So I was like, okay. So he did that. And I bought with the £700 2 digital effects units and a guitar synth, which you would be lucky if you could get 30 quid for the lot. Anyway. But he wanted to get it restored. So Bruce got it. He got it refinished and things done to it. He got it back to gold. And the truth is, I mean, what's original about it? I would think, I don't know, I don't think the tuners are, but what's really is the wood, the pickups, but not the pickup covers, but the pickups and some of the electrics. Okay. I'm not sure.
Has the neck had any, I mean, I assume it's been refretted.
Yes, I got it, I think it's still I got it refretted in the 70s by a guy called Alec Hush, who was the only guitar repairer in town back then. I remember Alec, he lived somewhere, it was Cranhill Way. And I remember going there, he said, he says, that fretboard's worn. He said, I've got a nice one off a Japanese Les Paul that I could put on if you wanted. And I was like, he says, it'll play better. And I was like, no, I'll leave it. Thank goodness. But anyway, so Bruce got this, and this was put on to give it the look of the original, but with the playability of the Tune-o-matic.
And is this your number one guitar now?
It is just now.
Pretty much.
It is just now. I mean, I've got, I mean, it is at the moment. Yeah. It's because also what I've discovered, because I'm gigging tonight, and it would probably, for the gig I'm doing tonight, a Strat would suit better. But what I've discovered is, because I was going over stuff with the Strat, and what I've discovered is, with my pinky problem, this actually is the best guitar for me at the moment.
The short scale length.
Yeah, it's the best guitar for me, because when I put on the Strat, I was I just wasn't kind of getting there. So, yes, this is definitely my number one at the moment. Well, this would be, I can't remember how long ago I originally got it, and it was in the studio recording with a friend of mine, Stuart McCready, and he was also at this time recording the Fratellis, and this guitar had been offered to John Fratelli, and John wasn't really interested in having vintage guitars. So Stuart had said to me, you should try that. And I did. All right, I need to have this. So I bought it, and then I had it for, I can't remember how long, a couple of years, few years. I can't quite remember how long it was. And then a friend of mine, a pupil, but also a friend of mine, again, made me an offer I couldn't refuse. Like an immediate thousands of pounds profit. Sold it with the profit, stuck it on the mortgage. Anyway, a number of years later, but I always, John that I sold it to, I always play it when I went over to his to teach him. I would play this, right? And he kept saying to me, that's your guitar. He says that's just right for you, just playing it. So right before lockdown, he'd been hinting at it, and he said, look, he says, Andy, he says, I'm going to sell this. And it was there was something, I can't remember, there was something in his life that he wanted to sell some bits and pieces. And he said to me, he says, I'll sell you, he said, I'll give you a really good deal on it. And oh my goodness, he did. It was, and I went, okay. So I sold a load of guitars and I got it back. So that was just right as COVID was hitting, and we were doing a gig. So it got one gig, and then lockdown happened. So I got one gig with it. Now again, what he'd done, he'd got it refretted. The frets had almost, when I had it, the frets had almost disappeared. Right, and I didn't want to get it refretted. I would have loved somebody to get it so he did me a favour, because I didn't want to get the original frets, and I didn't want to get it refretted. But he took that out of my hands and got frets. So I do a lot of recording with it, and I do gig this one. See, the thing is with the Golden, because it's had so much done to it, even though it's a fairly valuable guitar, I don't mind taking it, because if it takes a knock, or if it takes, I don't care.
Yeah.
I could do it, but this one I do. This is, well, I'm saying it's not all original apart from the frets, because it's got a 5-way switch, but I've got the original 3-way.
Okay.
So beyond that, it's virtually all original. So I'm just, and plus, you do tend to get things with old Strats, things that the pickups can just go for, like, if you're, a sweaty atmosphere, or, something like that at the gig. And so I'm careful. I still gig it quite a lot, but I'm a wee bit reluctant for maybe jams and things like that. I did initially. What I just have to tell you is the first time when I got it, right, and even, like back then when I originally got it, it was a fair few £1,000s, right? And I took it to the State Bar, and it was one of those nights that everybody seemed to bring a Sunburst Strat. There was at least another 4 Sunburst Strats, a variety of Squires, things like that. And they all looked much better than that. And it was that mad thing. They'll say, I paid thousands for this.
Yeah.
And nobody had paid more than a few hundred back then for any of these lovely Sunburst Strats. They all look like new versions of this. And it was just, and I'm standing there thinking,
Yeah. But this has got the history, for
Yes.
sure.
It was originally brought over by Johnny McElhone from Texas.
Okay.
It was brought over from America by Johnny, and then it was, at some point, it was sold to Gunn. So it was Baby Stafford, one of Gunn. It was theirs, and then so in fact the case has still got the Gunn, big logo on it. Yeah.
So 1960. So this was when they were just moving into the sort of slab boards, the kind
That's
of rosewood
right.
boards.
Yes, the late '59.
Slightly hotter version of the 50 Strats that had come
Yes.
before it, I think, in terms of the pickups. And so playability wise, compared to like a new Strat, I mean, how does it feel to you? Does it?
Brilliant.
Yeah. Still incredible.
Absolutely. It's just, it's an odd thing because I also got, I got a lot of stuff from John Fratelli. Well, I didn't get this from John, he just passed on it. But through Stuart, I got to know John. And John's, but it's great for some, because obviously he would get stuff that was, at this point, they're still really big. And so there was stuff that, I couldn't tell you all of them, but Fender would give him guitars and all that kind of thing. And he would sell them to me for very little money.
What a friend.
Oh, yeah.
What a friend to have.
And it was brilliant. I was custom shop Strats and all this kind of thing.
Oh,
and,
no. A good way to end up skint, really.
Oh, bloody hell. It was, I never intended to have a guitar collection, but it was people like John that, and I ended up with several guitars and amps from him. But I had, at the same time as I had this, I got off him 1960 reissue, custom shop reissue. It was nothing like it. nothing like it. It was a grand guitar. It was a great guitar, but it was just nothing at all like this. Nothing like it.
Should we give it a listen then?
Yeah, the bridge here with the tone wide up, which I would virtually never do. But I will just take so that you hear what it's like. I would have the tone, generally I would have the tone off on that. And then position 2, I would have the tone back up. Yep. I mean, to be honest, I would probably just about never use it on the bridge pickup clean anyway. It's a bit spiky for me, but I do use it with drive on it. Right. I would have it on very often. I have it on the bridge with the tone down. So position 2, right? So the in betweeny.
I was going to say, we all know that sound for
sure.
The
middle one, which I use a lot for soloing, particularly in recording. I use this a lot for soloing because I find just the way I set up that the neck is just a bit too muddy. So I like that when I've got a lot of drive and everything on. I'll use that quite a lot. And then position 4. Okay, is that the deck? Yeah.
Yes. So 1955 Les Paul Junior.
Yeah.
First year, these were 54. So it was a
54
year,
was
right.
it? Yeah.
So where did you get this guitar from?
I had a reissue Les Paul special and in TV yellow. And at some point, Kenny the drummer, Kenny Robertson, I'd brought down to my house. I brought down. He'd a fair old collection of vintage Les Pauls, you know, like P90 style things. And Kenny brought down a selection of his juniors, and my reissue just sounded nowhere compared to it, right? And I was like, whoa, I need to rethink this. You know, his old, the vintage ones just sounded great. So he said, yeah, Kenny had said, well, I know where there's one for sale. I know it was George Gallagher, who was in a band called the Poets, a big Scottish band. At times, says George is selling his junior, and as it happened, my bank manager, Sandy Pettigrew, who I knew, right, and he was a guitar player, and he was actually, just as a point of it, Sandy went into the band because Sandy also played banjo, and he went in when Billy Connolly was buying his first banjo. Sandy went into the Barrows with Billy to help him to buy his first banjo, right? So Sandy was really keen on my Les Paul special. So I sold him. He gave me the same amount of money. I think it was it £600 or £700 that George Gallagher wanted for this. So Sandy bought my Les Paul special reissue, and I went and got this off George. But at this point, it had been fitted with two P90s. Now, according to George, it had come from Stuart Adamson, funnily enough, of Big Country, right? It'd been his. But whether that's true or not, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know Bruce Watson doesn't remember Stuart with it, but it doesn't mean he didn't have it, you know. Right. So, over the years, so I used it for quite a long time with the two pickups. It was fine, but then I kind of hankered to get it back to what it should be. So initially, a friend, Gordon McClure, who was a really good handyman and also a guitar player, Gordon took the pickup out, plugged holes, got it no bad, but not quite the thing. Then, so there's another guy, George Russell. This was a couple of years again. Another friend introduced me to, and George was really good with guitars, refinishing and stuff like that, and finishing guitar, doing all that. So he plugged it. He kind of, because there was a switch there for the things, he kind of sorted out, you know, the kind of chunks out. It just upgraded it a bit from Gordon had done. That was it. It's the original pickup, original finish, with a few, you know, bits of touching up. It's not the original tuners. I've got the original tuners. Yeah, I've got the original tuners for it, but they were given out. Now take the tone back, because that's obviously all we've really got on this. And I would use the tone back again on this. Most of the time it would seldom be on full, the tone wide open. And I would almost never use it clean. It would almost always be with drive for this one. Leslie West. That's why I wanted a junior.
Okay.
Was Leslie West. I worshipped Leslie West when I was young. If I do that, I mean, you can even get it.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
an
to
absolute
talk about your
pleasure.
career and some of these incredible guitars. And as I say, if anyone wants to see you play, State Bar, best place to go.
Yeah.
Or that monthly blues jam at Charlie's Loft.
Charles Loft, and there's another one out at Paisley.
Yeah. And you've
in the
obviously got your
corner.
YouTube channel as well, which we'll
Yes.
post below. So thank you very much, Jim.
A pleasure, thank you, Cameron.
Gotta mention Nancy. She's always been a big fan of